Come on, Jay.
You pop.
Everybody, hello and welcome to 3+1, the livecast. We have a great, I think a really good livecast lined up for all of you who are out there. Definitely drop your name in the comments. Let us know who you are, who's joining us, who's watching us. Tracey, how are you this week, my love?
I'm fabulous. I'm tired, but I couldn't ask for a better week.
It's been a busy week, huh? Busy week.
I've been on set.
All week.
Well, not all week, but a couple of days, 2 different shows, so I'm juggling.
So I'm trying to get more lighting. I need to get some of your set makeup. Are you still in set makeup? You look so great. I feel like I look like me.
No, I did this just for Jay tonight.
Well, you look great.
Thank you.
What do you think, Jay? What are your thoughts?
I was just noticing I maximized my screen and my skin is real red. I got a real red tint. It's not. I don't really look like this.
Yeah, we can't compete.
It's too late now.
We can't compete with Tracey. So this is a great treat to be here tonight and talk. And I say, is it Wamsted?
It's Wamsted.
Jay Wamsted. And Jay Wamsted is a teacher, educator. And I say educator first because I myself prefer to be called an educator, teacher first, always. A writer. You have published pieces with the Bitter Southerner, one of my favorite magazines. A lot of people, Jay, don't know the Bitter Southerner. I do. I have been reading it for a long time. The first issue I picked up was a music issue from way back in the day, and I've been collecting those music issues ever since. And then, in addition to that, you've done some work for the Education Post, for the Harvard Ed Review, just tons of great stuff. And in addition to being an educator and a writer, you're also an activist, and your activism is, I think, really timely and really unique. So, Jay, I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to just go ahead and start with my questions. I got a lot of questions. My mom said hi. Hey, Mom, this is my mother. Thank you for popping in, Mom. So it's a special night when my mama can make it. Yes. And so, Jay, this is just to begin up. Tell us about your specific brand of activism and why it's really timely and relevant right now.
Did you?
Yeah, we got a little freeze, but I'm back.
Oh, okay.
So me, you got to go back about 16 years ago, and I had spent my 20s tutoring math. I had a math degree, and I was playing piano in some bands that didn't make any money, and I needed to get a job. And I was kind of tired of tutoring. Because tutoring's a nighttime thing, and I wanted to work during the day, so I decided to be a teacher. So I went back to Georgia State here in the downtown Atlanta, and they would, in 9 months or 12 months or something, they would give me a master's, and they would give me a certification, and they would student teach me, and they would like train me to teach. And that was great. And they put me at a school on the west side of Atlanta called Benjamin E. Mays High School, which is, for those of you that know Atlanta, is very storied. It's not the most storied Black high school in Atlanta, but to me, it's the most important one. But it's a very famous Black high school. It was almost all Black at the time. There were a few Hispanic students and 1 or 2 white kids per year. And I walked into that school. Hey, Jason. I walked into that school at 30 years old. It was 2006, and I'd never been in a room with just Black people before, ever. I'd been good in classes with Black people. I'd had Black friends, the way white people mean it when they say that. But I'd never been the only white guy in a room ever. And all of a sudden I was in this room with 30 Black teenagers all looking at me, ready to learn math. And that went kind of badly for a while, just because first year teaching goes badly for everybody, in ups and downs. But what I
was a master first teacher.
You were the best?
I wasn't a master, but I was very good as a first year teacher. But let me be fair, I was prepared. Like, I was somebody who wanted to be a teacher for a long time. So to be fair.
Okay. Well, I wanted to be a teacher because my wife told me I needed a job. So I was not in the right state of mind to be a great first year teacher. I was an okay first year teacher. I had no intention of staying at Mays High School. I was going to stay there a couple years, pay off some loans, because as a math teacher, if you teach in a Title I school, which is above a certain poverty level, then you can get loans repaid. I was going to teach there a couple years, and I was gonna get out and go teach people that looked like me in my mind. That I just never left. I worked there a couple years. A friend of mine there told me we should go get our PhDs together, and so we went and got our PhDs together. And that was really the start of. Also, that was a start of my real writing career, I suppose. And also another space where I was always the only white guy in the room, because Georgia State's just a really rich place for every grad class I ever had was just full of Black and brown people, and maybe a couple other white ladies. But I was always the only white man in the room, and that was really good for me, because white men need that. But that's another conversation too. And then I graduated with my PhD, and people told me I should leave Mays and go become a college professor, and I didn't leave, and I just stayed another 7 or 8 years. I can't remember. And I have recently, I was telling Zach, Tracey, when you came on, I recently have left Mays because I needed to line my school calendar up with my children's school calendar. I have 4 children. They're 12, 10, 8, and 4. And so I moved over to Cobb County, but I'm still teaching in rooms that are entirely Black and brown. I'm teaching some Hispanic students for the first time. That's really exciting. I get to practice my Spanish, and so it's not Mays anymore, but it is a very similar feel in terms of still being the white guy in the room.
And so, Jay, with that being said, how did being the only white guy in the room impact your thinking and your activism?
Well, so what first off, it's Maria.
We keep losing him. Oh, okay. You're back.
I'm sorry. Somebody just commented that I taught their daughter. Zach, you muted.
Your internet was a little bit sketchy, but I think it'll be fine. So
okay. I'm sorry about that. Can you see this comment? No, you're putting this comment up. This is
I see it. Yes.
Okay, she's absolutely right. I did ride a bike to work, and I put myself in word problems all the time. So I grew up like most white people, and I learned to not talk about race and to think that we'd solve race problems. And the way we learned to not talk about race was literally just to not talk about it, right? So we're not supposed to see color. We're not supposed to believe that, like, I'm not supposed to say I met a Black person. I'm supposed to say I met a person. That's the way white people are raised. We're raised. I think that's probably still going on to a certain extent. And so what we think is that that I am a white guy, and even though I've never really known Black teenagers, I was not friends with a lot of Black teenagers when I was a teenager. My children are white, my nieces are white, my nephews are white. Most of the people and throughout my whole life have been white as I've grown up. We walk into that classroom and we think race doesn't matter. I love all children, and teaching this Black child is exactly like teaching this white child. And there is an extent to which that is sort of quadratic equation. I get that. I mean, like, that's absolutely true. And word problems are word problems, and you balance equations the same way you balance equations, whether you're Black or white. But in a place like Mays, and I would argue all around the country, where 80% of teachers are white and something like 55% of students are not white, So white teachers are overwhelmingly the majority, but they're overwhelmingly outnumbered. And in a country with a history like ours, that white teacher walks in at a trust deficit, I guess is the way I would put it. And we walk in as people that we don't know how to relate to our Black and brown students as Black and brown students. We only know how to relate to them as teenagers in our mind, as the teenagers we knew growing up, or the people we've seen on TV. So we're already at a like cultural deficit there, but we're also then at a trust deficit because we're coming in as this member of this long-standing historical group of oppression. And then that plays itself out in all these other problems that go on in the classroom, which we probably need to get into. But I'm going to stop for a second because you're nodding and I want to let you interrupt me and say something.
I'm glad you said what you said about being the only white man in the room. And I appreciate that. I really do. But I've often wondered with my white friends, white counterparts, if not seeing my race is a detriment to forward movement. You know what I'm saying?
To the relationship?
Well, just to forward movement as a
society. Right.
Because not recognizing my identity, my cultural difference is an issue. I think that's where we clash, is because there are huge cultural differences. There are huge disparities within our races. And when you don't acknowledge that I just think that's problematic, you know? If you don't acknowledge that there are...
Yeah. Quote this all the time. Named Lisa Delpit, who says, if you don't see color, then you don't see children. Mm-hmm. And that's like, so for me as a 30-year-old white guy to try to act in some way as if you're not a Black child is in some way to erase you, right? And that, whether I'm teaching the quadratic formula or the periodic table or social studies or whatever, like if I'm erasing you, that's putting, from the jump, I'm untrustworthy up there, right? And like that's not how teachers operate. That's not how teachers win over the hearts and minds of these teenagers, because they're already disinclined to care. I mean, I just mean like math is boring. We all know that, right? So like they're already like this. So if I'm not earning their trust, they're gonna stay like that, right?
Yeah, I just wondered, you know, when I was at the theater school at DePaul University, and it wasn't a lot of Black students at the school. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of racial issues. And I just wonder, I would often wonder, like, do my peers know that a kid just got shot at the bus stop right before I got here? And so I had to come from the South Side of Chicago and wear this mask and pretend I was okay, knowing I'm walking into a room with like certain burdens, getting pulled over by the police. I'll never forget getting pulled over by 2 white police officers who didn't ask, before they asked me a question, had their guns drawn on me for making a right turn too fast. Wow. You know, and so I had my hands on 10 and 2, and then I have to go to school the next day with this, carrying this weight. And for me, that's where I have an issue with some of my white friends, is that we have to walk around with race on our minds all the time. Like I saw 3 white men walk into the restaurant in my neighborhood. It's a predominantly Black neighborhood. And I got scared. I was like, are they going to come in here and shoot? Like, I shouldn't be thinking like that as I'm eating. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. I hope I'm not the only person that thinks like that, but I carry that with me. And so as an educator, you have to know that these kids are carrying that weight with them as well.
And somebody, I don't know where this definition comes from. But they said you have to carry that around with you all the time, and you can't put that down, right? But as a white person, we can't. Like I can be just truly, and I'm using this word truthfully, I can be ignorant of race when I walk into Mays High School into a high school of 1,800 Black and brown children and 6 or 7 white teachers, and I can be completely ignorant that race matters in America. And I'm not just talking, that's how ignorant I think most white teachers are. And people say it's better now. I just don't think it is. I mean, it's better for some, but we have erased the history of how this country was founded. We have erased this history of how Black and brown people have fought and bled and died for their rights up until just a few years ago before they finally became legal, and then have just continued to fight and bleed. And every time a video comes out, we open our eyes and go, oh, I see now. And there'll be another video there was another video before the trial was even over. I mean, and we still just see it anew every time.
Yeah,
and that ignorance.
3 instances of police brutality against young people of color since the trial and the verdict was announced during that week. You not only had the situation in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we thought this was a mass shooting, when in actuality it wasn't a mass shooting.
Right.
It seems like it may have been a murder because more and more details are coming out of the situation. His name was Anthony. I think Anthony Johnson Jr. I forget the last name of the young man. He was gunned down in his school after the mother of his girlfriend called the police on him. Mm-hmm. So the police went to school to confront him and shot him, and killed him. And now the mother's all distraught and, saying it was a mistake. But with that, so one thing I want to do in this is do Jimmy Kimmel has celebrities read mean tweets. So Jay, you're going to read profound tweets, things that you have posted on Twitter that I thought were profound. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Tweet number 1 from Dr. Wamsted is this.
It's a little scary. Oh, okay, good.
You got to read it, Jay.
Oh, I got to read it. Oh, okay. Excuse me. White teachers, it's not enough to say, but I love all children. We need to make sure we specifically love Black and brown children and all their difference from us, and then show that love in our classrooms through equitable practice.
What exactly?
You want me to break it down?
Yeah, break that down for us, because, again, I absolutely 100% understand what you're saying and really agree with what you're saying as someone who had a 9-year tenure in the public classroom. And I actually started my career in Henry County, where when I started at a specific school, the school was 90% white, 10% other. And then over the course of those 9 years, it was 70% Black, and then 30% everything else. So it was a massive shift. And a lot of those teachers, they started their careers at the school because it was a country club school. Yep. And as the demographics changed, they quickly turned over. So what did you mean by that? And how do you think that impacts the greater level of American education? Well,
excuse me. I'm fully vaccinated. I just got allergies. I'm sorry. So first off, like it is a fact that young white teachers are put into Black and brown spaces as their training ground, and then they learn how to teach in 2 or 3 years, and then they leave and go to other places. All right, so that is just a documented fact about the American education system. And those white teachers I consider, so I was one of those teachers. To be clear, so I was an innocent, blithe, ignorant 30-year-old first-year teacher who was going to work a couple years in this Black school and then go find the job that I wanted once I knew how to teach. And that is, it's either white saviorism or it's white stupidity or a little bit of both. Somebody just wrote TFA, and yeah, we could talk all day about TFA. My job, what I see my job, Zach, is that 30-year-old teacher that I used to be, that first-year teacher. And they're somewhere between 22 and 45, and they're white, and they really believe this, but I just love all children, and race doesn't matter. And I'm going to walk into this classroom, I'm going to do my job. And I really think that, I don't think this is problematic. I think most white people, they think with, they love the children that they're related to. And overwhelmingly, we grow up with people of our same race, and we're overwhelmingly related to people of our same race, right? So when we say I love all children, in our mind, we might have this Pan-American experience. But what we really think is like, yeah, people that look like me, that's who we're able to love easily. And we don't know how to love people that don't look like us, because people that look like us, like Tracey said, there's a cultural difference, and that is amazing. That's like just wonderful. It is one of the things that I've loved so much this year is like teaching Hispanic students for the first time. It's so different than teaching Black students and the few white students I've ever had and all the white children that I've grown up with. And to pretend that they're the same as everybody else would be ridiculous. And so back to that tweet, when we don't know how to love the children in front of us, when we think I'm just going to love these children because I just love children, we end up treating them differently. And that bleeds out in our practice. And that bleeds out in just the overwhelmingly documented evidence that Black and brown children are disciplined in schools at vastly disproportionate rates by white teachers. And that's not objectionable. I mean, it is objectionable. That's not debatable. There's no debate about that fact, right? The same things that happen with these police officers and these Black children happen with teachers. Now they're not holding weapons, so the videos are different, and the damage is far less permanent. But it's still there.
But Jay, I say it's more. I think it's more permanent. Okay. I think the damage done by teachers in public schools, in schools across America, to be honest with you, because there was a whole thread on Twitter about the racial inequities, racial injustices at Westminster. Like it was a whole thread. I believe that the issues start in school when teachers miseducate children, devalue children, and don't push them to be their authentic best selves. That damage can last for a lifetime. It takes a whole lot for a child for an adult to unpack the damage done to them through an education system that's meant to hold them back and meant to put them at a disadvantage. An example, when you said how they're educators, right? So here's an example from public education. You have I saw troubled white kids, and they were called, troubled kids. They need help. They have problems at home. They need our support. This is a good kid. They have these issues. But when I would see a young Black child exhibiting the same behavior, they weren't troubled. They were problematic. They were dangerous. They were, for lack of a better word, thugs, and we need to get this kid out. This kid has to go. We need to get them out of this school. This school can't be successful if this kid is here because they're holding back the progress of other students. And that was an immediate response from Black and white teachers. And it's something that, and something I have to carry with me for the rest of my life, knowing that I did not do enough to stop those behaviors. Like, I'll never be able to get over that when I should have stood up, but didn't.
So that's a good line. What I want is
right.
Yeah, that's right. I don't want to get into like, there was somebody I really like, a teacher I really like in Minnesota posted a tweet about, this morning was about, I don't think that teachers are any less racist than police. It's just that what we do is a little more in the brain instead of in the body or whatever, so like, it was a white guy, and it was a good line. It was a good, we've got issues. And I think our racism pretty much, we're all kind of racist at about the same level. So I think, whatever percent of cops are racist, I think the same percent of teachers are racist. I think the same percent of software executives are racist. I don't see that that's going to be all that different. I'm trying to decide where to cycle back to.
Well, we can go into the question. Candy wants to know, really what has motivated your, activism and being an ally? Like, what has prompted that? She said, is it through self-education, through exposure? Like, and that kind of goes into, again, the next tweet to read. So if you could think about that answer, and then Tracey, I know, has a question come in.
That was going to be my question. What was the turning point?
I wish I had a moment because that would be a better story. I just one day I was gonna leave Mays and was at Whitfield Academy, a private school over on the like far west side, and they didn't accept me, and I was going to work at Mays a couple of years and then try to get back there, right? And it was that was my vision, and at some point I just didn't, and so I don't know exactly what the turning point was. To answer Candace's question, was it Candace that asked that? It was some combination of reading that I was doing at Georgia State, some combination of like getting my feet under me as a teacher and actually being able to enjoy the classroom. Because once I started in the first year, again, except for Zach, who was clearly the best first year teacher ever. But for first year's not a ton of fun until like the last 3 weeks of school. You feel like you're drowning like the whole time. But by the second or third year, when it started to be like fun, more and more regularly during the year, all of a sudden I was having fun with Black kids, and Atlanta Public Schools is a unicorn in Atlanta. I mean, in the country, because like there's just so many Black teachers. I mean, like, and that's not true nationwide. Nationwide, Black teachers make up it's a terrible number. It's 7% or something, and Black male teachers is 3%, or it's crazy. But in APS, that's not true. And at Mays High School, I taught with so many Black men and so many Black women, and I mean, very few white people. I taught with more Central Asian teachers than I did white teachers over the years. So I just got to know so many Black teachers and colleagues, and I just was having so much fun with my Black students. And it gets to the point of that tweet was like, I just started to, I mean, I don't mean this in a silly way, but I just started to love everybody, right? I loved the job, and I loved the children, and not because I was gonna fix them. I don't mean like I love them like I, in a weird way. I just mean it was just fun. It was fun to be at work, and that turned things around for me, I guess.
That is something
I got an answer to.
That is something that Candy and this has been an ongoing theme on our Thursday night discussion, is what can we really do? We always talk about what's happening in the world, and we really need to get to some solutions, or at least give some kind of like recommendation. Yeah. And so we've argued, I believe that I'm convicted that Black people cannot end racism. We are impacted and affected by racism, but we can't end it because we don't perpetuate it, we don't uphold it, and we can't end it. White people can end racism. I believe it is my responsibility to help you realize that that's your work. Yeah. Not you specifically, Jay. You already know that. But help white people realize this is your job. If you are a decent human being, you care about ending racism. You care about ending discrimination and oppression in all forms. If you are a good human being on the planet Earth. Candace and I talked about this, and she said, and she literally put it back in here. Candace said that the only answer is love. That was her synopsis. And she came right back to it here, is that it comes back to genuine love. Then you start caring about what happens to those kids. Because you love them, you care about them. But that is a really long journey to get to. That's going to be a long journey. Jay, I can't take every white person in America and give them a Black friend or two that they're going to fall in love with. When you look at, James talked about, like, Atlanta is extremely diverse. God put you in a very special place at a very special time with a very special purpose. But when you look at Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, and other places in the world where they don't want to take a vaccine, it's not diverse. The only Black people they know are the Black people they see on television. And if the only television they're watching is Fox News, that portrayal is not so high.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not of that mindset, Jay. I don't believe it is Black people's responsibility to teach and educate white people how to be an ally or how to advocate for unity and equality. I just don't believe that's my job. I feel like you can see the stuff that's going on. Why do I have to put it on display for you? For me, I grew up in areas that were predominantly white. So had it not been for my father being in education in predominantly Black schools here in Atlanta and then going to the HBCU football circuit, I wouldn't have had teachers. I wouldn't have been around Black educators. I mean, my parents are educators, but outside of that, growing up, elementary school, middle school, high school, I can count on one hand how many Black instructors, teachers that I had. I didn't get the influence. So I just don't believe it is my responsibility to teach you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, it can't be. And that's been, I mean, if I assume y'all have been going through the same thing. Almost every other Black person I've talked to has been going through the past year. White people want you to explain stuff to them, right? Since George Floyd was killed
or be
murdered, let's be clear.
Be on the panel or be on this committee. And I'm just like, no. Do you understand? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Yeah. Not only do I have a job or 3, I also have to deal with another Black person getting shot or another person being pulled over. And then I'm the other person something happens to. I get called the N-word or something like that. I don't have time. I don't have the energy. I'm tired.
No. What are just abstract things to me are real things to you, right? Like I don't drive and think about the police. I mean, I don't have to, right? I mean, I don't drive fast anymore. I'm 44 years old. They're not pulling over middle-aged white guys like for anything, unless I'm like doing something crazy, which I don't do because, I don't have time for all that anymore. But you can be driving a car perfectly safely. It's not the same thing. So the answer, I just saw another comment about this, is we desperately need more Black and brown teachers. Like that's not even a question. I mean, if I had the magic wand wave and could change one thing about the education system right now, that's what I would change. It's just if we could get parity on 6% of the school system is Black. So let's have 36% of the teachers be Black. Like that'd be amazing.
It may be, Jay. I don't agree with that either.
All right, go.
Let me tell you why. Of course, we want a diverse teaching force if it's possible. But the reality is, it's probably not going to happen, highly unlikely. This is what I want. I don't necessarily want more Black and brown teachers, although that would be great to have. What I want to see are more teachers who are culturally relevant in terms of their pedagogy and who actually have the heart to teach all children, period. And that is, I think, you've sat through a whole lot of trainings and a whole lot of sessions of a whole lot of wasted time, learning things that you really didn't need to learn because you already knew it. I believe that we can take in education anybody who has a heart to educate and help them be a better, more loving, more caring teacher for all kids. But not a lot of time is spent on helping teachers understand relationships with kids. It's not a lot of time spent on helping teachers unpack their own biases and prejudices and really get to the heart.
But Zach, how, if you don't have a certain amount of instructors that represent that Black and brown population to help the white teachers understand and learn that, they're not necessarily going to go read a book.
Tracey, I get it, but guess what? That's something, you're right. But here's the thing. We can't assume that just because you have Black or brown skin, that you're going to be able to contribute to the work. You could end up with the whole school you could have one teacher. You got Miss Owens, you got Mr. Walker, you got the principal, his daddy, the other Mr. Walker. You end up in there with Mr. and Mr. Hodge twins. So it's more than just having a Black and brown representation. It's more than that.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying have one Black and one brown. I'm saying you do have to have a higher percentage of Black, brown, and white teachers to work together.
No, I agree with that.
In the education system. Now I ain't talking about, like, for me, like I said, I'm not volunteering to do the work. I'm not. But I do think when it comes to our schools, I went to a school that was like 60% white and 40% Black, brown, and other, you know, and it was like 4 or 5 teachers in the entire school out of like 200. And that just wasn't enough for me.
So one thing that was super impactful for me, and I think a lot of white teachers are missing this just because Atlanta is so different in a good way, is that I would be in a room with all Black teenagers, and then I would walk out of the room with all Black teenagers, and I would go sit in a different room with all my Black colleagues. And that gave me just like more perspective on what on Black and white and race and America. And it gave me, the conversation one has with a student is just different than the conversation one has with a peer, a colleague. I think a lot of white teachers, they sit in the room with just their Black teenagers, and then they're in a school like you're talking about, in probably not in Idaho, but they're in, rural Alabama, and all the other teachers are white. Like all the students are Black, but all the teachers are white. And so they walk out of that room with the Black students, and they sit with their white colleagues, and that can go bad real fast. And it's,
what were those conversations like with
but that's the point too. That's the whole point of my argument. That is exactly that's why I'm saying this. So when James was like, we're tired, pick up a history book. The problem is that racists aren't going to do that. They're not going to pick up a history book. They're not going to educate themselves. They're going to stay insulated and isolated and continue to have their thoughts perpetuated. Instead of watching
to go to their communities.
You said what happened?
I need to go to their communities and
I believe, Jay said that his work is in this great body of work is to educate white teachers. That's his work. That is what he is called to do. That is his work. I'm saying I feel as though it is my work. I am called to educate people and help them understand they need to move towards anti-racism. That is what I genuinely believe is my work. But it's not everybody's work. So I don't, James, I'm not saying it should be your work. I think
that I am though, Jay. I am. I'm saying it should be your job to
not Jay, I'm saying James.
Oh,
no, James is agreeing with you. But here's the thing.
But I'm saying that it's up to people like Jay who have been in environments with predominantly Black kids and Black teachers and gets to hear and see some of the things that we're going through in our communities. I'm saying it now. Here's your opportunity to go to your white counterparts and lead the way. Teach them.
A piece of it. But here's think about this, right? We can say that it's not our work, but if we don't speak to it, those of us who have that passion to do so, the changes won't happen. And the awareness won't be there. Jay is going to make mistakes. Jay, you're going to say something out there one day that's really stupid.
I've done it.
But here's the thing. You have to have Black people who care enough about you to say that was stupid. Let me tell you why it was wrong. Let's fix it and let's move on from it. That is all a part of the work. Allies can't be out here fighting alone. We have to be their safety net, and we have to help insulate them from the challenges they're going to have from the Black community. And the brown community is it is a very complex issue that's there. Prime example, there's a whole group of people on TikTok, y'all probably know what I'm talking about, called The Fold. The Fold they were a whole underground movement that started during the whole entire Black Lives Matter movement. No one knew they were united. It was all adult content creators, like 35 to 45, and it was Black people, white people, all groups of people, and they would boost each other's videos, support each other, and everything. But a number of the white members of the Fold have made mistakes, have said things that were offensive, and then got a large amount of criticism for it. That is going to happen. It takes everybody united to move the work forward. We can't say, white people, you are the ones who created racism, be the only ones who can fix it. They are the ones who can solve the problem, but we have to help them in the work. Or at least that's what I believe. And there are people out there. So when Candy said, my job asked me to do a training on diversity, I agree with you. Don't train if you're not the expert, but direct them to the experts, because people don't know. And when they come asking or seeking, I think that we have responsibility to give them something, because at least they care enough to ask. When you think about Josh Hawley from Missouri, who sat up and was a single lone person in Congress to vote against the Asian American Protection Act today. Imagine how many other Josh Hawleys out there. So if Josh Hawley came to me seeking my opinion or advice, I would give it to. That's the whole point, though.
But
we have to combat.
He might have a conversation with Jay, though.
Well, that's true. And we want Jay to reach it.
His coattail and said, yo, like what you said was ignorant, or what you did, and here's how I just think white people need to do that. They need to call each other out. It's not my responsibility to call you out, because you're not going to receive it from me, racist person. You know what I'm saying? Like, a racist person is not going to get what I'm trying to say.
But you might, and to me, I hear what both of y'all saying, and I'm just like, yes and yes. Like, I mean, like I'm like, yeah, like it's not, Tracey, it's not any Black person's job to like spirit guide me through anything. And that's not like that's not helpful, or fair, or gonna work. But if I haven't made Black friends, allies, colleagues, coworkers, co-conspirators, all those along the way, then I'm going to just screw up and not even know it. Right. And I'm not going to have anybody to like check my ideas against, and I'm going to write something, and I'm going to need my Black friend who's also a writer to read it for me and help me out. And so I need that both. Right?
Absolutely. I think that's where I can lend a hand. I'm not going to go out and do the conversations, though. I'm not going to have the conversations with racists. I think white people should be like yourself. You come talk to me and I'll tell you what's going on. Now you go say this to your white friends or white people who don't quite get it. I need you to impart this wisdom on them. They won't hear it from me.
Yeah. No, I think, and I couldn't speak to the data on this, but I would imagine that most white people need, I don't know, I have said this to people before. I've said, I think white people, they do need kind of a white tour guide to get started in some of this, because they're not going to hear it from you, Tracey, at some panel where you're the DEI diversity person they put on the panel to talk about X or Y or Z. Yeah. They might hear it from you 2 or 3 steps down the road, but they're going to need, I think most white people need a push from a white person first, or a pull from ideally a friend or a neighbor, or a relative, or something.
Yeah, Candace, I hear what you're saying, but if there's more Jays out there talking and doing the educating, I think it would get more of a message across. It's some people that just want to live and die a racist. They want to eat, sleep, and racism. Like, they wholeheartedly, those people you won't get through to. But there are some people that are straddling the fence, or there are some people who are ignorant to their own Karenism or their own racism. Like, there are some people that don't know that they might say something. For example, like I brought this up, but I had a guy in grad school say the N-word, and I checked him on that, and he was like, well, what? I'm just quoting Dave Chappelle, or I'm just rapping a rap song, crazy. Kind of thing. And you got to check people like that.
So I will, to go back a long time ago to a turning point, was, so I'm embarrassed to say this, but I've said it a lot, so I'll say it again. I've said it enough that it's on the record. Is that when Obama got elected, I thought we'd fixed it, right? I mean, like, I was one of those white people that, like, I was standing in this very room watching the TV, and they were down at Spelman going crazy, and I was just like, I was so excited. I went to school the next day. It was the best day of my entire teaching career. I was showing speeches, political cartoons, like, just having the time of my life, and it was just it was a great day, and I was thrilled. But just underneath the surface, I was like, well, we did it. Like, we did it. Like, we elected this Black man to be president, and we did it. And we fixed it. And it was, it didn't take long for me to be disabused of that. But that was probably the turning point for me when I realized, oh, we didn't fix it. Like, like, oh, the most important person in the world is a black man, and he's still getting racist abuse. He's still, I mean, it's not just the campaign. Now he's president, and they're still treating him less. And that was when I was like, well, this is permanently messed up. And that was when there was no going back for me at that point.
But here's the thing, Kate, this is what I want you to think. I want you, here's my question. How can we motivate people to do that, right? So the non and anti-racist, how do we motivate them and encourage them to self-educate, if not from that push, if not from that movement forward? I think that is what has to happen, and it's a part of it. Because again, there are people out there who are just willfully ignorant, and they don't know any better because they're not in environments where they can know better.
And I just want to say hello to Kate Jackson, who is one of my closest friends in the world. We've known each other since we were 13, 12. So thank you, Kate, for joining. I love you, girl.
And so here's the next profound tweet, Jay. Are you ready for your next profound tweet?
I'm super nervous, but
read it.
Yeah, wow. Okay, yeah. I tweeted this after the morning after Dante Wright. It's not an isolated incident if it keeps on happening. It's not a few bad apples if it keeps on happening. It's not a problem under control if it keeps on happening. And this keeps on happening. So Dante Wright, I mean, and we've had so much happen since then. Terrible things have happened since Dante Wright, but that's the one that really sticks with me, because that image of this police officer, just trained police officer, reaching for the wrong weapon, supposedly on accident. And of course she thinks it was on accident, but that's what it is to be afraid of the black body, right? It's to reach for the wrong weapon and call it an accident. And I think that's what teachers do. Again, it's a different weapon. But we suspend kids instead of calling home, or we call home instead of quietly tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, chill. Or we quietly tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, chill, instead of just giving them some space. I mean, we're always reaching for the wrong weapon with black students, because at some level, white people have been raised to be afraid of black people. And that's what that cop did for Dante Wright. And I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed is the wrong word. I just can't get that image out of my mind thinking about the white teacher still. So
what is the fear, Jay? What exactly is the fear? Are you, because I've always wondered, is it just my skin color that scares you? What is it that makes us scary?
I think it's got to be a combination of past history and current media, I guess. I mean, there's a guilt that comes from being white that should be there. I mean, any educated person should see the benefits we have and the advantages we have, and should feel bad about that. This is maybe a little too psycho-Freudian, but to repress that and ignore it and pretend everything's fine, should cause you to feel guilty. My child feels guilty when he does something wrong and hides it, right? I mean, white people who are pretending everything's fine should feel guilty. So I think that's part of the fear. But also, somebody in the comments said something about the Michelle Pfeiffer movie, Dangerous Minds, right? I mean, that's what, again, to go back to teachers, we're raised on that bread and butter. That's our bread and butter. Oh, this is what it is to be a white teacher, black students. It's I'm going to walk into the school and I'm going to teach them to rap as poetry, and it's going to be beautiful. And that there's a fear there too, though, right? Dangerous Minds is about a dangerous place. And so that media diet is fed to us too from an early age. So I don't know if that's a good answer.
It's a great answer. It really, a large part of it is perpetuated by the media. It is perpetuated by films and songs and everything else that feeds into every single stereotype and narrative that was developed to portray black people in a certain way. So and it is so deeply pervasive in American society that it's almost impossible to catch. An example being that it's now scientifically proven where you have a number of doctors and medical and healthcare professionals who literally, they have been taught that Black women and Black men don't feel pain the way that white women and white men feel pain. That you don't need to waste all this anesthesia on the Black female because she's not able to feel pain at the rate the white female feels pain. These racist incidents and occurrences are so deeply rooted in the way that people are trained and taught in America that we're going to take generations to unpack and undo it. When you have, even when you watch films, when you watch TV shows, when you watch programs and you see the portrayal of Black people in juxtaposition to other groups, that also leads into these stereotypes. And that's where that's why there's so much fear. The whole entire 80s and 90s to me was all about making America afraid of the Black threat. So you had the crack epidemic and you had the gang violence, and the gangs are everywhere. And we got to stop these gangs. So if a Black kid's in school and they're acting out, they're in the gang. You know, it's funny to us now, but it's like, what? But that is what white educators in the education, that's what they were taught. And that's so you have whole entire movements about gang violence in schools where they really believe they are doing the right thing by putting kids in the juvenile justice system to help them not become gang members.
I find that to be odd because, you know, as I got older, I learned about white biker gangs. And I'm just as scared of them as I am a Blood or a Crip, but we don't hear about those gangs until we get older. Like I didn't know anything about this. This is a hidden thing. And I'm just like, they do the same stuff we do. Or, you know, it's like there are certain groups within our community that do certain things, just like they have certain groups within their community.
And
it's human nature. Yeah. Why
is it that we are stamped as dangerous or scary and yes, it's the history. I do believe that, but I'm just like,
and again, I'm always advocating every time this book, the best book of the year, stamped from the beginning, the adult version teaches you so much, teaches so much. We are going to, you know, get ready to kind of move forward for time's sake and talk about and this is what we do, Jay, every Thursday night. We always include the up, the down, and the clown, as well as the best of us. And the up is just some good news. Tracey, how would you describe the up of the week? Like this is good news, right?
Yeah, good news of the week. Somebody did something good.
And so this is a kind of, you know, in terms of a good news of the week, in terms of an up, you know, it's a good news with a caveat, and is that there was justice found in the Derek Chauvin trial. And, you know, it's good news, not that this man murdered George Floyd, or even that this man is going to lose an aspect of his freedom. The good news is that hopefully it is one step, this is my opinion, that is one step towards the reconciliation of justice in America. Because a lot of people in this world did not think that there would be a guilty verdict. From the look on Derek's face, I don't know if he thought that he would get a guilty verdict. You can take a look at Zach's face, because I didn't think he was going to get a guilty verdict, but he did.
I was stunned. Yeah,
I was stunned. I was like, what? You know, there was a tweet going around that said, "Oh, let me take off my Luton clothes." Like, you know, because we were thinking, oh, we might have to go march tonight. We might have to go out and start, you know, some good trouble because justice won't be served, you know. So,
and luckily it was. But it comes with an unfortunate, you know, the caveat is that literally moments after we get the verdict concluded, we find out about the murder of Micaiah. Is it Micaiah? Did I say I know that what the name they were quoting in the newspaper was not her name. They were misspelling it and it was getting mispronounced. But I think it's Micaiah in Ohio was killed in her foster home setting, literally hours after the verdict was reached.
Yes. So I had an argument with a discussion with two police officers regarding this issue who are Black. police officer. I was of the mindset of, did he have to shoot her? Why didn't he use his taser? And they were just explaining to me a couple of things.
Yep.
And their biggest issue was, why did the parents allow her to go outside and fight and stand by and watch? That's number one.
I think it was a foster home, a group home. It was a group of kids who lived together. And these girls, I don't know this, but they could have been like foster siblings, temporary siblings, in a foster care situation.
Okay, so here's the other thing. They said they are trained to stop the threat.
Yeah.
At that time, she was the one with a knife, yielding a knife towards another person. So she then becomes the threat. So they were saying they are trained to stop the threat. And so is it we stop her from killing someone by shooting her, or or do we tase her and tase the wrong person? Like, it was just, I don't know. They were just explaining how they're trained. So I heard them. I'm just wondering how this could have been done differently. I don't know.
Well, I think, there's several things that could have helped. Like, number one, having our police officers trained on de-escalation and shifting the focus from lethal force to simply trying to stop the incident from occurring. So there's a training that has to happen. There's a level of, just again, that a different shift and different focus. Personally, I'm going to say this. I wasn't going to say it, but I'm thinking it. I think it may be a benefit. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I kind of, I am someone who also has friends and family members who are in the police force. I've never been for a defund the police movement. I've always been for a shift the funding in the police department inside of the police department.
Yes.
Let's do a better job of training and recruiting and ensuring that police officers have what they need emotionally and mentally to do a good job. In this situation, I definitely think this was an excessive use of force, and there needs to be consequences for the excessive use of force. But I do not know if this is a situation that would mandate the type of public outcry that we received at the murder of George Floyd. Not that every Black life doesn't matter, not that every life isn't precious and equal, but I do believe that different factors were present in every single case, and that has to be considered. I also believe that there is a cult of people who prey on Black trauma, and they're getting rich from it. And it is becoming to me very apparent that there are people, and that is their job. Back in the day, Al Sharpton was seen as a vulture, for lack of a better word, to be on the civil rights issues. And it built his brand and made him who he is. And he has pivoted and he's grown his brand. But I feel like there's a whole group of people doing that exact same kind of work right now. And I think that it is more harmful than beneficial. But also, to be fair, it's a fine line you have to draw, because there needs to be awareness brought to issues. So I'm trying to figure out how to say that in terms of like what the balance should be.
So yes, I do believe that there needs to be better de-escalation tactics. However, she was in the pursuit of another person. She was in an active pursuit to stab another person. So what are we asking them to do at that point? Are we asking to say, stop, put the knife down, ma'am, don't do that? Like, what are we asking them to do? Because if it were me and somebody's coming towards me with a knife, I'm gonna want something to be done to that other person to prevent them from killing me. So I don't know.
I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. I fully agree. Wasn't gonna ever say it, not publicly, but I fully agree and I support that. Again, I think there shouldn't have been lethal force used. It should have been a taser. I think that it goes back, as Candy said, to how they view the threat, the level of the threat. Because it was a big Black female, I think that in the minds of the officer, a young man who is now going to have his life irrevocably changed because a young Black girl's life has been irrevocably lost, I think he may have seen the threat as bigger than it was. That is the problem. That is where the racism comes into play. It's how people view Black people, and that's what we have to change.
The big thing in the teacher world, and I know this is true with police too, is that we this is proven that we age up Black children 2 to 3 years in our minds, and so. I mean, that's just like we literally misjudge their ages consistently on field tests or whatever. And so I think Makai was like 15. Is that how old she was? But to that cop, she looked 18 maybe. And that, to get back to the classroom, is why we see Black children as a threat sometimes, because we look around and we see all these 8-year-olds maybe, but that little boy looks 10 to me, but he's not 10, he's 8. But he's Black, and so the white mind ages him up and feels like he's a threat because he's older and bigger and scary or whatever. And that just
Deontay Wright looked like he was 12.
He did.
Yes,
he looked like a very young man, like very young boy, very young boy. So
to me, that situation is different. He did not have a.
I agree, totally different.
Did he have a gun?
No.
I don't think he had a weapon.
Totally different. No, I think that's totally different. That's what I'm saying. To me, the killing of Deontay Wright is a situation that needs mass support and mass efforts and mass calls for police reform. The unfortunate killing of Ma'Khia, it deserves attention, it deserves action, but it's a different situation. Just like the killing of Matthew Zaduke Williams in Atlanta, he was killed in DeKalb County, killed by Black officers. The police, the sheriff of DeKalb County and police chief, phenomenal job in terms of meeting the family, trying to really seek to support the family from what I've seen in the news and even heard from family members' accounts. But then again, when they first made the news in DeKalb, the family was praising the police chief. Now, several days later, because we have the involvement of legitimate activists, the narrative has changed.
Yeah. Look, my police officer friends said, Tracey, this happens all the time.
That's true.
Atlanta and in DeKalb County, you don't hear it though because we're Black officers.
Yeah, and it's not getting filmed. You're right, but the one that did, the Zaduke Williams, did get the attention. So if you haven't seen that, Google it to see what you think about that. Right, they did. No, did they want to swatch situation to DeKalb? They didn't want one, but they certainly got one. Killed. They aren't trained to injure. You're right, but that is something that we can fix. We can adjust that. Policing can change. And they can be trained to injure and not kill. And and using non-lethal force is something that can happen.
And somebody said, why 4 shots? I don't think they're trained to pull the trigger once. I think they're trained to pull in bursts, right?
They're not. My friend in Chicago said he unloaded 13 shots.
Yeah, you're supposed to. I mean, that's the training is like if you pull, that's what I understand. If you pull the trigger, it's because there's an imminent danger and you're supposed to keep pulling.
That is the mindset.
And that I agree with you, Zach. That's a matter of training. Like we could retrain them because
we can fix that.
Yeah.
We can fix it. Here's something else that we may not be able to fix. Okay, we can fix the training issue, but we may not be able to fix this week's down, which is this. People, the down of the week is the surge in COVID-19 cases among the unvaccinated. Vaccines reached, good news, 200 million doses. The 46th president of these United States, Joseph R. Biden, fellow Scorpio, said that he would get 100 million people vaccinated in the first 100 days. He then said, I will double that to reach 200 million. And he did it. He delivered on the promises made, promises kept. But this week is the first week that vaccinations in America has dropped. There is now concern that vaccines will go to waste because people are refusing to get the vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of, we're hitting the point where we're getting to the people that don't want to get vaccinated. So we're gonna start to drop off, right? I mean, so now we just got to see if we have enough herd immunity to get it through. So
we do not. That is also
okay. All right.
We do not have. We are at 50% of the U.S. population having received at least one dose, which is great. Phenomenal time span. You have countries begging for vaccines. People are lying and giving out fake vaccines. Canada is in desperate shape, wanting vaccines.
No, we're the best in the world. Yeah.
Yeah, 50% of Americans are vaccinated, but we are nowhere near herd immunity. We need 80% of the American population to be there in order for herd immunity to kick in. And it looks as though we may not get more than 60% if we continue at this rate because of vaccine hesitancy among the general population. And I wish I could blame it on white Republican conservative men, the way that the media is saying, though they're a huge part of it. And I wish you could blame it on Black people because it's also a media or narrative stereotype. But the reality is it's half of the population. It's not any one group. It's more pervasive than we know.
But let's be clear. If the 45th president of the United States, who is in exile, would stand up and say, you should go get vaccinated, that would help. So he has failed his country.
If the twice impeached one-term president,
yes,
as Sonny Hostin says on The View, you're right. But he did. Let's to be fair to him, to 45, because I wish I would have had his picture, the one I like to show, the picture I like to show Tracey from crying. I wish I would have had the pop-up Jay. I didn't know you were gonna say him. I have a picture I show every time we talk about it. If he did say this week for people to get vaccinated. His daughter, Ivanka, of course, had a viral Twitter picture of her getting vaccinated, and she was ripped through Trump country. They dragged her like she probably has never been dragged by her supporters. They were following her. They were crying about it. It was hilarious.
I'm glad. I hope they all get the vaccine and get unfollowed.
Well, I think Donald Trump had the vaccine before he left the White House. And yes, Kale, you're right. Johnson & Johnson definitely didn't help. I think it is a lot of white conservatives who are saying this. But I think that it's more than just them as a population that's not doing it. I think it's across the country that people aren't speaking out about it in the same way, and that's sad. I'm afraid of more variants coming forth because of the virus mutating when it doesn't have to. We can stop it right here. We can stop it right now, but we're not doing it.
Yeah, and then you run across people like my cousin who got the first vaccine and had a bad reaction to it. And other people that were, oh shoot, she got something happened to her, so I don't want to take it now. Or somebody died. Somebody said if Hank Aaron hadn't gotten the vaccine, he'd still be living. I'm like, he was 86, y'all. Like he lived a full life.
86 years old.
So,
but yeah, that Johnson & Johnson thing did not help. Which is, I've read, somebody said I was listening to something and they said, but this is good news that they stopped it. I mean, it's the science doing what it's supposed to do. They saw an issue, they're going to stop it, they're going to fix it, they're going to move on, and it should make people feel better, but it does the opposite. It makes the wishy-washy people.
And it's a good thing that you got sick. If you got the vaccine, that means it worked.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate, but I want to say 5,600 people, the vaccine unfortunately didn't work. They didn't get sick. They had no side effects or symptoms, but the virus, the mRNA of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine did not do in their bodies what it should have done. Like it just didn't do it. Their bodies just didn't respond. And it's rare. It's like less than 0.007% of people, but it still happened for some.
And you don't have to get the vaccine. I'm just saying, wear your mask at least. This man walked in the restaurant today and they were like, can you put your mask on? He was like, really? You asking me to put it? Yes. We're asking you. I got 2 masks and I'm vaccinated fully. Yes. Well, put your mask on. It is still here.
It's still here. So we talk about the up, we talk about the down real quick. We also, Jay, talk about the clown. Tracey, what is the clown of the week? would you define this concept?
Oh, just somebody who did something stupid, Jay.
Okay.
You know, it's a lot of clowns every week, but guys, I don't know if you've seen the viral video. I loved it. I've watched it multiple times. This is Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. John Basset Hound Face Kennedy. And this is not the John Kennedy we know and love, okay? This is not the John Kennedy, not the JFK. This John Kennedy was really excited. He was so excited to have Stacey Abrams in a committee testify about voter suppression around the United States and these bills being passed by Republicans, of which he is one. And he was ready to put her on the spot. It's like he had his little questions planned out, and he was questioning Stacey Abrams, and he said, "What is racist in the law?" And Stacey Abrams came prepared in the way that we know only Stacey Abrams can be prepared. She had her receipts and she read them out so clearly and plainly. He kept trying to interrupt her, which he did multiple times, and she kept firing back. She did not buckle to the disrespect that he was leveraging towards her. She did not hesitate or get thrown off her game. And that really showed me that Stacey Abrams is truly prepared. She is ready. When you can stand in front of a congressional hearing and still articulate eloquently your points and not get deterred by a white supremacist like John Kennedy, you ready. You ready.
Yeah, I watched it.
If you look at his viral moments, he has said some of the dumbest, most ignorant and offensive things in Congress. And I want to give this man more attention. I want us to see more of what he's done, because he's done some horrible things.
You know what? I watched the video and I was just shocked at the line of questioning. And then when she would give the answer after, I'm like, very thorough, he would cut her off. Mm-hmm. And like when he asked for the list, and she started going down the list, and he stopped her and was like, "Is there any more?" And she was like, "Well, yeah." And then she kept going. I was like, "That's right." But it just goes to show that no matter what, this is my personal opinion, Black people have to be 10 times as on top of their ish in situations like this. And it still doesn't matter. It still doesn't matter how well prepared she was. He didn't care. And Lindsey Graham, same thing with him. He would ask a question and she would answer and he would not listen. I mean, it was insane to watch like Zach, this morning, I watched it this morning. And
I loved it.
Sorry.
Yeah, you need to see it. You got to see it. The easiest way to digest information like this is to go onto Twitter and just Google John Kennedy, Stacey Abrams, Kennedy Abrams, and just look at the quick clips. You will see the highlights, and they were excellent. They were excellent to me. Yeah, they reelected him, and yeah, I didn't have much of a doubt that he was going to win reelection.
Yeah, she was ready. She was ready and prepared. And she didn't stutter. There was or a thought, or let me take a moment, get a swig of water, nothing. She was excellent. She was great.
Do you think that Stacey Abrams will have a chance if she runs against Brian Kemp? Do you think that she's going to win the election? Do you think that this bill, Jay, from your perspective, is this bill going to be so harsh that it's going to tip the tide for Republicans in Georgia?
Well, so this is what I don't understand. I feel like the Republicans in Georgia, and I am not a Republican. I have never voted Republican. But I feel like this was their moment to turn things around, reach across the aisle, try to try to reach the scrap and try to actually build a governing coalition. And instead, they put their tail between their legs and they did this repressive.
Well, they're doubling down. They could have chosen a different path. If I lose an election, I'm going to sit down and reflect and say, what did I do wrong? Yep. And to be fair to a Republican, Kelly Loeffler, she is kind of doing that. I have to give her credit, because what she's doing is she created a Republican version of Fair Fight. I forget the name of it, like Georgia something, All Georgia, and where she is out recruiting conservative Republicans in parts of the state that were underrepresented in the election. So she's trying to be the white Republican version of the black Democrat Stacey Abrams. So power to her. That is the right thing to do from a political standpoint. To look at
but she's a terrible candidate. And so in general, if they had got if the Republicans had looked around, tried to nominate some decent candidates, like not tried to bring back the Jim Crow voting rules, they might have had a chance to hold off the Democrats in Georgia. As it is, I don't think they can. I mean, they might be able to win next time, but they're gonna have 2 million people out there handing out water to everybody.
I think they will though, because a lot.
You think you're gonna win again?
Because this bill is going to.
I think we're gonna beat it. This is the thing. I think this is the benefit of the bill. Is gonna push toward. We may have by 2022 national voting rights laws passed. We may have the John Lewis Voting Act passed before the next election. So that's possible. And had they not passed this law, that wouldn't have happened. I do believe it's going to. It's definitely meant to suppress the vote, but I think it could have an opposite reaction. If we keep this in the news and we continue to push this forward, it's going to continue to motivate people to do and get out there. And I think that is where it has to stay in the forefront. I'm very thankful that the coalition of 535 Black ministers are united and calling for boycotts, because it's keeping it in the news every single day. You have the Black Panther, Ryan Coogler, saying he's going to film part 2 in Georgia and not move the project, probably because it's cost prohibitive to do so, because you have all those scenes that are unique to the Atlanta area in the movie. So, but he has made a commitment to fighting voter suppression. There was another big film that was just announced today that they also would not leave Georgia, but they were also making a commitment to fight this bill.
I was going to say they're doing their due diligence by talking to Black politicians and Black activists in this city and talking about what it could potentially do to the Black people Black actors, Black PAs, the people crew that work on these films, and just in general, like a lot of Black people work at Home Depot. A lot of Black people work for the airline. It could completely shut this city's revenue down.
It's going to hurt the economy, but that's what boycotts have to do. That's the whole point of them. That's how they've always been. When Black people were boycotting the bus boycotts, they were hurting a lot of Black people had to make a choice to not go to work.
Yes.
They didn't have cars. They made a decision to sacrifice their income. Many of them lost their jobs to stand up to that oppression. They took a massive hit for the moment, for the longevity of the community and for the benefit of the American people. And unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. And so those of us who maybe are not going to be impacted financially by this, who are not going to lose their jobs, we have to find ways to take our resources and share it among the community and those who are hurt. James, when you talk,
I may have to move because of this, which is
because the films won't be filmed here. The work won't be here.
Yeah.
You won't be moving. You'll just be traveling and staying for long periods of time to come back home to us in Atlanta. And James said that James was talking about a great candidate. Here's the thing, James. Yeah, you had good candidates with Jamie Harrison against Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
But the bottom line was he just wasn't good enough for South Carolina. Just because you have a good Black candidate doesn't mean that white people are going to vote for him. That is something that we also have to grapple with and understand. Black people in the United States are not a majority anywhere. So an isolationist, segregationist strategy isn't going to get us far. We have to work one with another, with everybody in society to make movement. Our work is convincing. You can't just have all the Black people vote and think you're going to win an election. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
I just was listening. Gosh, I can't remember who it was. He wrote the book. I think the book's called The Devil You Know, or he wrote The Devil You Know. And anyway, he was advocating for a reverse Great Migration, where for Black people to leave. This is a black thinker to leave the North and to move back and to move into the the shoehorn, you know, from Virginia down all the old slave states, and actually like turn them into a plurality of Black people, and that would be the and then they could like start electing senators and governors and could actually get political power. It was. I'm sorry, that was a little off base, but
no, it's not. I know exactly. That is that a strategy that would work though?
Oh, I mean, in theory, yeah. If you could convince millions of Black people to up and move, all of a sudden.
Charles M. Blow wrote the book. Charles Blow.
It was Charles Blow. That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Is the book called The Devil You Know? Okay.
The Devil You Know.
If there are the example, so I'm from Mississippi. I'm originally born and raised in Mississippi. Mississippi has more Black people than any other state per population. Mm-hmm. If they all voted in the same block with the white liberals in the state, Mississippi would be blue.
Yeah.
So it takes
Mississippi has the most Black people.
Yeah,
percentage-wise.
Yeah, and percentage-wise, not numbers. But like, let's say you have 1,000 people in this. If you have 100, okay. Here's a breakdown of 100 people in Mississippi. 38 of them are Black. But here's the thing. That's why these suppression efforts are so essential to the Republican strategy. Because if the Black people were to all vote with the white liberals, you would get a blue state like you got in Georgia. Finally, it's starting to click. And that's why it was so essential to put these measures in place to stop that from happening. In Mississippi, a lot of Black people don't vote. And they don't vote because of the historic oppression they face as Black people in that state. When they have lost, they know family members who have been killed.
You need to go back and educate the people of Mississippi about why they need to vote. That is insane.
Well, here's the thing. One, where I'm from, so I am from, when you look, so I'm not like, the Delta is a part of Mississippi that is, heavily populated with Black people. I'm from a small place called Kemper County that's on the East Coast. On the line with Alabama, right? I'm in the center of Mississippi on the line with Alabama. And when you look at every electoral map, you see a sea of red and two little blue dots. My county, where I'm from, is a blue dot. Black people where I'm from have voted always. It's a big deal. When I was a little boy, my great grandmother dressed me up in my church suit and we would go vote together. That has been a part of my lifelong experience. But again, helping people realize and fight that fight is massive. But I think it's possible the next election, Mississippi could go blue. That is the work. But it ain't gonna be my work. That's not my calling. I'm not going back. That's not what God called me to do. I'm here. You
just gotta go back and educate them. I didn't say move.
They can watch my TikToks, my Facebooks, and my IG videos.
So you gotta make them specific to Mississippi.
Okay, Matt, I'm in a group, I donate money. In addition, the last thing we do on the show, Jay, is this. Everybody, last thing we always do is we end on a high note. There's always a lot of bad news, hard news. We always end on a high note, and we talk about who represents the best of us. And this week's the best of us is this young lady right here, the one and only, guys, Darnella Frazier. We would not have had a conviction in the Derek Chauvin case had Darnella not filmed the video, had she not withstood all the hate, all the trolls, all the abuse that she subjected, had she not done her part. She was what was she 15 years old then, or 17 when she filmed it?
I don't remember. She was young.
I think 17.
17 years old. This young lady truly did change the course of American history, and I'm happy to share her with you as the best of us for the week. So.
And thank her for being brave. I don't know if at that age I would have had that kind of bravery. So these kids are different. They different today. So
they are different. So Jay, thank you so much for taking the time, for joining us. I appreciate it. I can't wait for you to finish this project you're working on. In the meantime, for everyone out there, you can read Jay. To me, I love his tweets. Best tweets. Read the tweets. Follow him on Twitter. But he also has a series of phenomenal articles that are out there. Here is one for educators on Edutopia. He has a TEDx talk that was amazing that he did called Eating the Elephant, Ending Racism and the Magic of Trust. You can Google that. You can see that. In addition, he has a series of great articles on sojourners, and one of them being forgiveness is not the easy way out of racism. It's a whole series of great articles, great writings. He is someone that you need to follow and that you need to read. Hands down, one of my favorite voices on Twitter. When I found you, Jay, I knew I had to have you on this platform to talk and to engage with, and I just really appreciate the time that you spent with the 3+1 community.
Jay,
I
appreciate y'all having me. This is so I don't understand still why we 3+1 because there's just 3 of us, but I've had such a great time.
Tell them, Tracy.
Okay, so
okay.
It's 3 of us, and our audience is the +1.
Oh, all right. And y'all did that with the comments and like constant. Yeah. Okay. All right.
So they are our +1 community. So every time +1.
I got you.
You got to come back. Are you only on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter and I'm sort of on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I don't know how to take pictures.
Twitter is a problem. But don't worry.
I'm a words person.
I'm an Instagram.
I'll be taking his tweets and putting them in my Instagram stories, and I'll share them with you that way. So I take my favorite tweets and I post them into my story so everybody can see all the stuff that I love. And some weeks I have like 800 people look at my stories, and then I'll have 23. I hate Instagram. I hate the Instagram algorithm. Instagram is horrible. I hate them.
I don't get it.
I hate Instagram
so much. Like, for real, you gotta come back.
You gotta be back with Jay. So once that project wraps, he's gonna be back to talk about that project. We're gonna hype that up. I can't wait.
That's great. Thank y'all so much for having me.
All right, thank you, my friends.
Bye +1.
Bye +1. See you guys next week.
That's good. We should use